Super Typhoon Eggai continues its sweep on several parts of the Philippines. It is now closing in on Northern Luzon. And just one day after delivering his State of the Nation address, President Bongbong Marcos is off to Malaysia in the hopes of securing more investments for the Philippines. And a historic win for the Filipinas in the FIFA Women's World Cup as they beat world number 26 New Zealand in a rousing game. Fast, focused, and fearless. Here's a roundup of stories we're watching now. I'm Sean Yao. Super Typhoon Eggai maintains its strength as it continues to threaten Northern Luzon. Pag-asa last spotted Eggai some 190 kilometers east of Apari in Cagayan. It is packing wind speeds of up to 185 kilometers per hour with a gustiness of up to 230 kph. By tomorrow morning, Eggai is forecast to make landfall or pass very close by the Babuyan Islands or northeastern mainland of the Cagayan area and Batanes. The weather disturbance is expected to exit the Philippine area of responsibility on Thursday. As a result, Pag-asa has raised signal number 5 over the eastern portion of the Babuyan Islands. Signal number 4 is up over some parts of Cagayan as well as the rest of the Babuyan Islands, while signal number 3 is still over some parts of Luzon, and we are flashing those areas on your screens right now. Signal number 2 remains up over several areas that you are now seeing on your screens. As for Metro Manila and other parts of Luzon, they're all under signal number 1, as you can also see on your screens at the moment. And as a result of Eggai, the Office of Civil Defense is also on red alert due to the super typhoon. OCD Director Edgar Posadas told One News Now that preemptive evacuations are ongoing in affected areas, with almost 200 families already brought to safer ground. Meanwhile, 70 ports have canceled sea trips today, resulting in over 4,700 stranded passengers. There have been, though, no reports of injuries or casualties as yet.
Our operations center in Camp Aguinaldo is monitoring that so that if makakatulong po ang inyong Office of Civil Defense, kung sakasakali na may mga communication outages, then pwede tayong makatulong po dyan. So with the ICT and also through our regional offices, in our 17 regional offices in the whole of the country now.
Moving on to other news now. President Bongbong Marcos is already in Malaysia for a 2-day state visit in a bid to explore new avenues of cooperation with Kuala Lumpur. Julie Baiza with the report.
A day after his second State of the Nation address, President Bongbong Marcos has left the country for a 2-day state visit to Malaysia. During his brief stay in the Asian nation, President Marcos will have an audience with Malaysia's King Al Sultan Abdullah and Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. Marcos said that they will discuss initiatives that focus on the fields of agriculture, food security, tourism, digital technology, and people-to-people exchanges. The two countries will also explore new avenues of cooperation, particularly in the areas of the halal industry and Islamic banking. The president will also meet with Malaysian business leaders to showcase trade and investment opportunities. He is hoping to bring home more investment pledges for the country. Finally, PBBM will have a meet and greet with the Filipino community in Malaysia. He believes that through the investment from various foreign visits, our kababayans abroad will soon have an option to come home and find suitable work in the Philippines. Accompanying the president in this trip are First Lady Liza Arneta Marcos and several cabinet members, including Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo. Vice President Sara Duterte Carpio will be the country's caretaker while the president is in Malaysia. Mobile Journal Julie Baiza, We Are One News.
We're gonna pause for a quick break, but we have more stories for you right after that. Stay with us here on One News. You're back on One News Now. I'm Sean Yao. Here's some good news coming out of Australia as the land down under scores some milestones in the fight against HIV/AIDS. While the Philippines still has a lot of catching up to do, what Australia did to battle the fatal disease may not be such a tall task after all. One News editor Joey Francisco is in Brisbane and he filed this report.
Landmarks and bridges in Brisbane were lit red to reflect the universal color of HIV and AIDS awareness. This also serves as the city's warm welcome for the thousands of delegates attending this year's International AIDS Conference. Experts, policymakers, and non-profit representatives are here for 4 days to attend various scientific and developmental meetings. It's a pleasant coincidence that the host country announced a major medical breakthrough during the convention's opening. Australia is poised to be the first country to achieve virtual elimination of HIV transmission, specifically in inner Sydney, an area known as this country's epicenter of the AIDS pandemic during the 90s. Experts are lauding Australia's efforts because the infection decline here is among the best in the world, and they will be able to achieve the UN target before the 2025 deadline. Amid the celebration, a word of caution from the International AIDS Society president.
Is that despite the great news of potentially getting close to eliminating HIV transmission in Australia, HIV is far from over. And the real reason for that is that HIV is unlike any other infectious diseases. Smallpox and polio and COVID and almost any other virus you know about is an acute infection. It goes away and gets cleared. With HIV, of course, it's a chronic infection. That needs sustained investment, not just to provide the drugs, but to provide the care that people need to be on lifelong treatment and the associated comorbidities that go along with HIV.
Experts believe focus should now be shifted on countries lagging behind UN targets, especially those in Asia and the Pacific. Concerns were raised specifically with what's been happening in the Philippines. A staggering 237% increase of infections from 2010 to 2021, with almost 15,000 new cases added to the list last year. Dr. Rosana Titanco of the AIDS Society of the Philippines and RITM is here in Brisbane for the meetings. She's optimistic that our country can still achieve Australia's success story despite the not-so-good statistics.
Ang importante, may plano, may vision, may target, merong parang konkretong outcome na susundan. Yung numbers na gusto nating ma-reach natin at paano natin yan ma-reach in a concrete way. Hindi po pwede na yung packets of intervention. Hindi na pwedeng ganyan. Kasi wala tayong ma-reach pagka ganyan. Kailangan talaga ang ating act ay synchronized.
The whole of society must exert efforts to suppress the alarming rise of tuberculosis and HIV/AIDS. To stem the tide, the strategic plan is to ensure early diagnosis and treatment and ample testing sites and medications.
Delegates from the Philippines witnessed the good news of Australia's victory against HIV/AIDS. They believe that we can also achieve the same success in our country, even if we will need a lot of catching up to do. What is important, they say, is now there is scientific proof that HIV/AIDS transmission can be eliminated. Reporting from Brisbane, Australia, Joby Francisco, we are One News.
And speaking of victories down under, the Filipinas likewise just made history. The Philippines has scored a breakthrough win in the FIFA Women's World Cup after upsetting New Zealand, which is ranked 26th in the world. Serena Bolden scored the Filipinas' first ever goal in the 24th minute via a header off a nice cross. The Philippines also became the first to score among all World Cup debutants this year. Co-host New Zealand had a number of good attempts at the goal, but Pinay goalie Olivia McDaniel was always there to guard. One News Now will be back tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. I am Sean Yao. We are One News. All sides, all the time.